Hey guys, welcome back to Four Eyes, the podcast series that gives you a clear view into the optometry world across Canada and the US.
We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Amrit Bilku.
I'm Dr. Deepan Kar.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ravinder Randhawa.
And I'm Dr. Alex Kuhn.
We are so excited to share today's episode with you all. We are talking with Dr. Rosa Ramirez. She is one of our very good friends and fellow classmates from the Illinois College of Optometry. Rosa graduated along with us in 2019, and now she currently works at a private practice in Illinois. And as an optometry student, Rosa actually coordinated and organized an entire mission trip to Mexico all by herself. And we were very intrigued by her huge accomplishment as a fourth-year student doing that. So today we want to talk about her personal journey as she planned this mission trip, what hurdles she had to get through, and what equipment or what assistance did she need in order to get all of this put together. So we really hope you guys enjoy listening to this episode, and we really hope that this conversation with Rosa inspires all of you to provide those optometric services to underserved communities and provide those mission trips to give back to those communities. If you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to us on our Instagram. Just send us a DM and we can try our best to give you as much information as we can to help you get started with this as well. Dr. Ramirez, can you tell a little bit about yourself to all of our listeners here?
Yeah, so I graduated from ICO 2 years ago in 2019 with Amrit, Deepan, and Reggie.
For those of you who don't know, my nickname is Reggie, and Rosa calls me Reggie.
Insider. Four Eyes Insider right there. All right.
Yeah, so I graduated 2 years ago. I started working at a private practice right after graduation. Well, not right after graduation. That's where the mission trip came in. But my last internship I was at, it was a private practice. My teacher was awesome, and she was like, "Why don't you stay on with us?" And I'm like, "All right, awesome." I don't know. Yeah, I spend a lot of time with my family. I like to get away when I can, as you guys know.
Yeah, Rosa lives on a ranch and goes horse riding all the time and shows off on Instagram when she goes to the beach.
So, Rosa, where have you done your optometric mission trips? And what do you think are the advantages of participating in these trips as an OD student and after graduation?
Kind of strange the way that I ended up doing a mission trip at ICO. I went as a part of a Christian group, which, I mean, I'm a religious person, but it was not like I wasn't a part of the Christian group at school or anything. It just so happened that we got an email, and I told a classmate of ours, Carolyn, and I was like, "Why don't we do it?" And we're like, okay, like we thought it would be something nice to do, you know. We saw so many people in a day, like it was a week's worth trip, which I think you guys did a mission trip too, right? Or
we did it in Mexico.
Okay.
Yours was Honduras, right?
Yeah, we ended up going to Tegucigalpa, Honduras.
Yeah.
And it was just, the people were just so grateful, and like you could just tell like how happy they were when you put the glasses on them, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like you have never seen this good in your life, like, you know. So that was such a rewarding feeling. So I just loved it. And the doctor that we went with, Dr. Valeria, and I can't remember her last name for the life of me, but she was so sweet, and that's how she went by. She was Dr. Valeria. And honestly, she was just a very inspiring person, because she ended up like moving out to Honduras like shortly after graduation and just starting a clinic there. And like she has devoted her whole life to this mission to go and provide eye exams to the Honduran people down there. And it's just like, what, just like, I just thought she was such an altruistic person. That's the word I was looking for. Like to give her whole self to, like, you know, people, like she wasn't Honduran. She doesn't have family members like that are Honduran, but she was just like, you know what? she felt a calling like to go down there and provide services for people. And I just thought that was amazing. Like, I don't know. So it was like, she's a very inspiring person. Anyway, so that was a nice experience. And I think as a student, like, you should really try to go on one of these trips because it's just awesome. Like the experience that you get is just unforgettable and rewarding. And I don't know, it was a really good trip.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Our trip, mine and Deepan's trip to Mexico, we saw a lot of students a lot of patients a day. And some of them would travel from like a village from 2 to 3 hours away just to see us. And they would be like camping out for the whole day. And they were so grateful. And it was an incredible feeling you got, and these people actually appreciated you, and like it, I would definitely want to do that again.
Very rewarding.
So rewarding is probably the best word to describe it. And good for Dr. Valeria for like, that sounds like she just sacrificed everything to just go down there and help people. That's crazy to me. That's amazing.
Can you imagine, like, just picking up your things and like, all right, I'm going to go to this country that I know nobody, that I barely know the language, and just, like provide for these people. And like, but yeah, so she was just very inspiring, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like I don't know if I'd ever be capable of doing that much, but like, if you like, that's what inspired me then to like do the mission trip. So I'm like, you know what, like, I might not dedicate my whole life to an underserved population, but for sure, being able to help here and there, I think is important.
Rosa, speaking of, going on these mission trips, you kind of planned your own mission trip right after graduation, right? We just talked about like all the different things that are involved in a mission trip, the people, the volunteers, the equipment. My big question for you is, how did you go about planning an international optometric mission trip on your own? Like, how did you choose and set up the location? How did you know which locations were safe for you and your team? And especially if you've never been there before, how did you organize all that stuff?
I think it's so funny right now that you said that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that actually sounds pretty impressive. Like, I'm like, right now.
It is. I'm like, that's why we brought you here. That's why we're proud of you.
Thank you. Once I like boards passed and everything, like, I was super grateful to God for like getting me past all those milestones. And I was just like, you know what, like, that was a mission. Passing like boards, passing, I don't know, just going through optometry school. So once I was kind of like, okay, like, I'm licensed and we're about to graduate. And I was like, you know what, like, I had thought of this going into optometry school. It's like, one day I would like to, give back to my parents' hometown. Both my parents are Mexican. They come from the same little small village in Mexico. Anyway, so it's not a very touristy place. It's a small, maybe 10,000 population town, but so it's not big. And after that, like, they're really, it's a very isolated 10,000 population town. So there's no real big cities around there. So anyway, so I was like, I'd like to give back at some point if I could. And when I was, before optometry school, I was working for a doctor, Dr. Lewis, and he actually is in charge of serving a lot of the Chicago public schools. So he has one of those mobile optometry units. I don't know if you guys have heard of them.
Yeah.
But it's, basically, it's like when we went to CPS at school. But we would take a lane over to a different school every day and like set up in a library, set up in a classroom. And I remember I used to be a technician that carried all of that stuff in my trunk. So I would show up to the school and set up a lane and put the computer, measure the 10 feet, and like put the phoropter up, carry little mobile slit lamps. And I would set up like the whole desk and for the optometrist. And I remember I would do like a quick auto refraction on the children, IOPs, vision check, give them to the optometrist. And then that's where, so basically that's where I'm getting at, is I want to give a shout out to Dr. Lewis, because he's the one that actually ended up providing all the equipment for me. And it was honestly so nice of him, because I remember when I was working with him and I got accepted to school, he was so excited for me, and I was like, yay. And so he was happy for me. And during school, he'd always give me work, and I would always catch up with him here and there, and he'd be like, how's school going, and this, that. And we always kept in touch, kept good communication. And it came to a point where I would joke with him and be like, Dr. Lewis, like, you know, you don't use your equipment all summer. Like, would you let me borrow it and go down to Mexico and do a, you know, like a mission trip? And he'd be like, yeah, Rosa, anytime. And I'm like, okay. And like, this was me as a student. Like, and he would just like, kind of like, yeah. And I thought he was playing. And so I was like, oh, I'm like, I would throw it in there just to kind of plant the seed, I guess. Cause I'm like, well, maybe one day he will let me borrow it. And the year before graduation, that December, I go down to my parents' hometown every Christmas. So I was going down there, and I asked them, because the kids on CPS are on break during Christmas break. So I said, hey, what if I borrowed, you know, a couple of your equipment and went down and did a screening on the kids, just to kind of gauge how many kids that, like, you know, like I would do the trip for. And that's when he's like, oh, you're serious? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I want to do my mission trip. So he's like, okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll borrow you an autorefractor, an eye care, and I took a vision chart with me. And so I went and I did this, and I took my things with me, and I went to do a screening. And like, I remember I contacted the school director down there that was in charge of like the majority of the schools down there. And basically, they told parents to go and take their kids. And I show up, and I took a couple of my cousins. I was showing them how to check VAs. I was showing them, like, you know, like how to help.
Yeah.
Two kids showed up to my screening, and I was just like, oh my. So I was like, oh my gosh, like nobody wants glass. Like well, it was just a screening, but I think it was just like they weren't interested because there was no like game to it, you know, and everybody was on vacation. So that those 2 weeks that they have off, like they're not trying to go to the school and get like extra stuff done where it's not providing you anything back. So I was like, I was really bummed out, and I was just like, oh, I just brought all this stuff for like nothing, you know, like I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, oh well. But I knew that there was a need, because I go down there and I see all these kids with no glasses. I've been to the schools, like I've gone to pick up my little cousins from school. Like nobody's ever wearing glasses, and I'm just like, I know these kids need glasses. Like, being Hispanic, like you run, like there's a lot of stigmatism that runs in our culture, and it's just like, I know you need glasses. So I was just like, oh my gosh. So I was a little disappointed in how the director took care of it, because I guess they didn't really market it that much either. The mom that did take their kids said nobody, you know, like she didn't know about it. So I was like, you know what, I got to take this matter into my own hands. So then when it came time to graduation, I remember contacting my cousin who has kids in the school program, and like it literally was like verbal, like mom to mom to mom to mom, like know that somebody's coming, they're going to do eye exams on the kids down here. And this wasn't a screening anymore at this point. I'm like, I'm going to go down with all my equipment. So that's literally how I let the town know that I was going, was just like word of mouth and moms sharing on Facebook. And then at that point, Dr. Lewis was like, okay, well, it's summertime. They have 3 months off of school. And he's like, you can borrow more of the equipment. So I actually lugged down a whole phoropter, like in a luggage piece that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the eye care, an autorefractor, a computer for the VAs.
You brought all of this in like an extra suitcase?
Yeah.
No, so I drove down. So I drove
gotcha.
Yeah, so I drove all of this down. From Chicago down to Zacatecas. So it was like, it's like a 34-hour drive maybe.
Wow.
By yourself, Rosa? By yourself?
No. Here goes a shout out to my uncle, because my uncle offered to help me drive down there. So it was me and yeah, it was quite the trip. It was a pretty heavy set of equipment that I took. And then getting to the border, I know there was a question in there about like if I ran into like any difficulties getting to the border. Oh my goodness. I run into customs and they start giving me such a hard time about passing the stuff over. And they were just like, well, like, I don't know if you're bringing this stuff down here to sell. And I'm like, I'm not selling it. I'm doing it to do like a mission trip. I'm doing it as a free service. And they're like, well, how do I know? They like, it's just so unorganized down there. You guys have no idea. And it's just like,
did you have to show any like paperwork? Like you could show them your ICO, like pictures of you in like an ICO shirt or like at the school, in the classroom, in clinic, nothing?
They're like, no, this is not legit.
What?
No, yeah. So, I mean, I remember I had a note from like Dr. Lewis and everything saying like, this equipment belongs to Ageless Eye Care.
Well, that's smart. Before the police come find you and say it's stolen equipment.
Yeah. So that's exactly what. So I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I was having a panic attack. I'm like, I just drove 24 hours from Chicago to be stopped at the border. And the guy from customs was like, you know what, ma'am, if I were you, I would just take this over to a rent to storage unit and leave your equipment there because we can't let you pass with it. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like this whole, like, I took like a month's worth of time to go down there and do this. I'm like, this is what I came out to do. I'm like, I need my equipment. And he's just like, well, I'll charge you a small fine and I'll let you take it then. And it was like, I'm like, all right, you know what, it's fine.
They just wanted the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was just like, okay, I'm like, you know what, it's fine. Like, as long as I get to still take it and like do what I set out to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then after that, luckily I got down there and found a school that let me, and I got this idea from being a part of that mobile unit out here in Chicago Public Schools. I went to my cousin's school and I was like, oh, do you guys have a little room I can have like for the time being and set up a little like optometry lane here and do the eye exams. And the principal there was so on board with it, very helpful. He was just like, yeah, like, let's do it. And so he let me use that room for that time being. So I'd go there every day around 1:00 because I think the kids would be out of school around like 1:30 or something. So I would set up, and by the time they were done, oh my gosh, you guys, if you guys only saw like the first day, there was a whole line of kids lined up with their parents, like, and I was like, my heart was just like, oh my gosh, like I was worried because of that screening I did in December that I was like, nobody showed up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what if
persistence is key.
Yeah.
Persistence is
and
key.
word of mouth is important. Apparently, you just proved it.
Yeah.
Yes, word of mouth. That's the market right there. So, anyways, so and here the difference was too with like that I was going to not only do the exam but provide a pair of glasses for a kid who needed them. So that was the whole like I think that made a big difference too versus my first attempt was just like, I'm just screening your kid, and they were like, well, what is that going to do for me? You know, like, how's that going to benefit?
So you didn't have any other optometrists join in, or did you have any like other volunteers or other opticians that came in from the village to help out, or anyone?
Oh, no. There is one optometrist in the town, but I think they were away during that time. I didn't ever get in touch with them. And then I don't think he even has an optician. I think it's just that optometrist there doing like everything from start to finish. And then aside from that, no, I had a couple cousins, like I showed them how to check VAs, and I was like, like help me at least, like, you know, I had to train them a little bit.
You recruited the volunteers.
Yeah. And I was like, and I mean, I gave them a little bit of money just cause I mean, it's very, what's it called? It's a very poor town, and like, they really like, I don't know, like any job is good. So they were like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. So I taught them how to help me with the eye care and check pressures and check VAs. So yeah.
Wow.
You said you provided them with glasses. Did you take glasses from Chicago?
So I did. Dr. Lewis with Ageless Eye Care, with his whole like CPS program where he goes school to school, they actually carry like a bunch of frames with them. It's like a stack of like, I don't know, this high. I can't remember what lab he used, but it was pretty cheap. And he's like, you know what, like, honestly, he hooked it up. Like, I was able to get frames and lenses for pretty cheap because he told them, you know, I have this new grad who's doing this service. Can you guys help her with, like, you know, cutting costs of the lenses? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So he was able to, like, save me a ton of money on that. Yeah. He let me take down a set of frames and they would pick them out. They would be so excited and trying on their glasses. And I had my cousins help me with that too. Like, I'll help them, you know, pick out a frame. And I'm like, if you guys are confused and, like, if it's not a good fit, like, let me know and I'll run over. And because it would get pretty busy. I remember there were times where, like, I was just like, I could barely eat, like, because it was just like so busy.
What was the process of getting the frames delivered to the patient then? So they pick out a frame. Did you just make notes of who wanted what, and then you bring it back to the lab in Chicago and then have them made?
So pretty much I did it just like he does it here. Like, I had an exam form and that's where I'd write, like, patient name, birthday, and their final RX findings. And then I'd write down, like, the name of the frame, the color, the size. And then that's how once I got back, I went through each exam form and, like, inputted the information and sent the order out. So when they came in, they had the patient name and all that information on there. So,
and then you guys shipped it to the school so that the students would pick it up, or did you send it to, like, each student individually?
I sent it. My brother went on a trip down there shortly like, once the lenses arrived, the frames arrived, and I sent them down with him because we go a lot to my parents' hometown, or we did. And so he took them down, and my cousin that helped me do a lot of this, she was the one that helped distribute them out because she knows a lot of the kids down there, and her kids still there, so she was able to, like, distribute and stuff. She was my little optician.
Oh, that's how many cousins did you have helping you? Was it just, like, a couple, or was it like
the whole fam?
It was usually two of them.
Okay,
but
just
sometimes
2.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that many of us. Honestly, we'd fall behind because of me. Like, sometimes the auto refractor wouldn't be working, and there I am scoping away, and I'm just like the auto refractor would sometimes just, like, break down on me, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I'll scope and all, like, 'cause it definitely helps a lot, like, you know, like, to give you an idea. And then once that wasn't there, I'm like, I really got to sharpen up these rep skills here. So there were days where I was like, all right. It was. And
then how many kids did you end up seeing in a day?
I want to say it was like 167, I think I remember. Wow. Oh, not in a day. Sorry, not in a day. But
I was like, Rosa, you were not sleeping.
No. You're like, okay. No. Sorry, I thought you meant for the whole time being. I think it was like 167. I can't remember how many I see a day, but it'd be maybe like 15 a day, 20 a day.
Okay.
That's a lot.
But that's still a lot for, like, kids, 20 kids a day.
Something like that.
Deepon can handle one.
Yeah, I'm, like, done after one. I'm like, all right, my patience is out. 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Get out.
It was so funny because then it was like there were days that they would come and there would be a line, and I'd tell them, like, okay, I'd tell my cousins, because my cousins would have a little sign up sheet, and then, you know, I'd say, okay, cut it off after this one, like, no more. And then people would come and be like, oh, like, you know, like, I really need one, like, she can't see well, and it'd be like, all right, just add her in. And like that would just, like, keep, and I would get out of there so late, and it's just like it was but it was, like, again, rewarding. Like, I felt good doing it, but there were days that were a little longer, and I'm like, oh, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
And,
I think that's how me and Raph felt when we did our mission trip in Mexico as well. It was our days were long for sure. Like, we would I think we would get up at like 6 a.m. and then start.
No, earlier. We used to get up at like 5:30.
Yes.
Remember, 6 o'clock, we used to have our breakfast, and by 7, we had to be at the screening.
Yeah. And then we would be working until like maybe 7 or 6 or 7.
It was a good 10 to 12 hours we worked in the day.
Wow. That is super long.
Yeah.
And it was hot. It was super hot.
Yes.
I remember, like, I'll be doing red and I'll be like sweating. I'll be like, somebody come and fan me, please.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that the second time around was like it paid off really well, you know, all of that hard work and the bribes at the border, like now it was all worth it, right?
Yeah, I was just like, my worry was, and I hope Dr. Lewis isn't listening to me, but my worry was just like, what if they try to take my stuff away? Like, it can be kind of corrupt at the border. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to run into this. Like, I had my letter, I had like, you know, like proof of like, you know, like this is borrowed, I'm bringing it back. And they like, you can run into like a customs official that just isn't, I don't know.
For anyone who's hopefully planning on organizing a mission trip, I guess that's rule number one, is maybe travel with a bunch of optometrists, or maybe sign up with an organization that kind of already manages mission trips, because then, I guess you won't run into this all by yourself at the border, you know, possibly not getting in.
So talking about like lenses and how you had to pay kind of out of your pocket for the lenses and the frames, were there any other expenses that you had to do out of pocket?
Well, the first one was the bribe. Second part was...
How much did that cost you, just out of curiosity?
It was like around $100. It wasn't that bad, but it was just, but
100 US, like, right? 100 US,
yeah,
so about
like 200 Canadian.
120 Canadian.
Yeah.
But yeah, just once I got back, it was just paying for the glasses and the lenses themselves, which I was thinking of maybe, you know, starting a GoFundMe or something to get like help to pay for them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that bad. It was like, I can't like exactly quote it, but I think I spent maybe like $500 on it after. It really wasn't that bad. Like
for like 170 kids for glasses.
But
like
not all of them needed glasses. Not all of them needed glasses.
Not all of them needed them.
Yeah, I want to say I ordered maybe like 70, and it was a couple of them were double orders for the kids that had like really highest prescriptions. I was like, well, let me get them a backup pair in case they like lose them or break them, because it was like, you really should be in glasses.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of those kids needed to be in glasses. So.
You know, I'm really glad that we spoke with you now so openly about how you organize the mission trip, because I do remember personally, like during school, you brought up the idea and you were saying, you know, I'm trying to organize a mission trip. And I was like, whoa, Rosa, hold up. How are you even doing this? How are you handling this? This is so much work. But now that you actually talk through the steps, like it doesn't sound impossible at all. You know, this does sound like something that people can do. But I think, you know, it sounds like you were definitely in good hands, where you had connections with ODs who had the travel equipment or the portable equipment, and also access to cheaper lenses and frames. I think I have one question that you may not be able to answer, but, you know, if we were thinking of doing a mission trip and we don't have connections with someone like this, do you know of any frame and lens companies that are easy to approach when you want to do a mission trip and you want to ask some of these companies like, hey, do you, are you able to give me a discounted price if I want to do a mission trip?
I was lucky enough that I didn't really have to search around, because I had that connection with Dr. Lewis, and he was able to, one, hook me up with like the equipment, two, hook me up with a place that does, you know, he gave me a really good discount on frames and lenses. So I was lucky enough that I didn't really have to search for that. But I mean, I don't think it's worth a try to ask, like call up SLR rep or something, and, you know, mention what you're trying to do. And I think that's a good start, and they would be able to kind of guide you into like, well, maybe we can't, but so-and-so can, or something, you know, like I'm sure, you know, like it's a good deed that you're doing, and I'm sure somebody will be willing to help. And, you know, I think that would be, like, if anybody's thinking about doing it, the worst thing you can do is like ask and be told, no, I don't know. And then you just go to the next one.
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
Oh, sweet. Now I miss Mexico. I want to go back.
Let's go.
It's
Let's do one.
Yeah, it's like bringing back like flashbacks of mine and Deepon's trip, because in the evening we would walk around the town. It's a really small town too, and like people knew who we were, and they were even like they would come to us and they would like thank us, even though there was like a big language barrier. You could tell that like they were just so happy and they just like welcomed you to their town, and it was a really good experience.
And like meeting the people that we worked with or volunteered with too was just as amazing. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think we'll ever forget those personalities, and those friendships will always be remembered too. And yeah, some of those nights that we had, it was just, I'll never forget those experiences. So yeah, just waiting for COVID to be over so we can do this again. Hey.
Yeah. Seriously.
So are you actually planning to organize more mission trips in other locations?
For the moment, not right now, but I think I definitely would like to in the future again, because I mean, I don't know, there's a need for it. Like there's so many underserved populations out there that, like, I don't know, I think here, like, it's taken for granted that you have such access to eye care, and it's like everywhere else, it's not that easy. Like I said, in that town, like there's one optometrist, and he wasn't available for like the longest. So
yeah, where was he this whole time? You were there all summer.
Yeah, he probably came back and he saw everyone in glasses. He's like, "What happened?
What happened? Where did all you come from?"
He probably ran out of business.
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you so much, Rosa, for sharing and being open about the experience. I think we've always been curious as to know how the trip went, because, you know, this was post graduation. So obviously we all kind of went our separate ways, and, you know, the communication between all of us obviously gets less after graduation because everyone's celebrating or sleeping for like 5 months after graduation.
Catching up on all the sleep.
Catching up on all the sleep. And I think what I said before, I'll say it again. You definitely made mission trips sound less scary, less daunting, and less of a hassle. You know, I think the way that you described how you went about it, even you organized this as a student, you know, right after boards and right after, you know, final exams. So it's anyone can do it. If you can do it, yeah, anyone can do it if they're really motivated and curious to get it done.
For sure. That I do want to say, like, shout out to Dr. Lewis, because like all that equipment was his, and it was just like very
so nice of him.
He got to borrow it.
So you never told him what happened at the border, though?
Now he's gonna.
Now he'll know.
He'll be like, Rosa, never again. Not with my equipment.
Sorry, if you're listening, Dr. Lewis, I'm sorry, but I got it back.
Got it back.
Thank you to everyone for listening to Four Eyes. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating to give us feedback on how we're doing. You can also check us out on Instagram at 4eyesoptom for more content. Look out for new episodes every Wednesday. So until then, stay tuned.